Hey, tonight at 7 p.m. at Left Bank Books in the Central West End, our next guests are going to be there signing a book. And Alan Gebert and Mary Grace Foxwell, welcome Big 550 KTRS here in St. Louis.
Thank you for having us.
Your book is called The Land of Milk and Uncle Honey, Memories from the Farm of My Youth. Is this what I think it is, which is a raucous good time about how great it is growing up on the farm?
Well, kind of, perhaps, but it's my childhood on a farm about 40 miles south of St. Louis here and across the river in Illinois, and it's about the big dairy farm we had, and my great uncle, whose name happened to be Honey, believe it or not.
Yes. And
the raucous good time he had on the farm of my youth.
Yes, and so you two got together and said, what, we're going to tell this story?
Well, what happened was I write a weekly ag column on food and farm policy for about 70 newspapers around the country. And every now and then, once or twice a year, I would write, as a change of pace, a column about the farm of my youth.
Right.
About 3 years ago, Mary Grace, my daughter, who's a great editor, said, I haven't read all those columns. Would you put them together? And so I have this thing called files. They're not...
old school.
Yeah,
I
old
heard.
School.
Oh, yeah. Well, hard copies, they're called. Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's what these old people tell me about. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's amazing. I pulled them all together and was stunned to see there were 60 that I had written in the 22 or 3 years. And then from there, Gracie took over.
And what'd you do, Gracie?
Well, I really compiled the book into what I thought could be a full narrative of life on an American farm. And I think a lot of these family farms are long gone, but I think there's a lot we can learn from these stories for family farms in the future.
Yeah. Is the family farm dead? Or is it dying? I mean, it's still kind of out there, no?
Well, we have probably two answers to that. The family farm that I grew up is, yes, it's gone. And that size, even then, 700 acres was a big farm. Today, that's a part-time farm. We in Illinois call those 5 o'clock farmers. They farm after their job in town. So that farm is long gone, but that doesn't mean families are gone off the farm.
No, many families in rural America and in central Illinois, where I grew up, still very much make their living off agriculture. But what we're trying to say with this book is that maybe there's more to be said about that life, and rural communities can be stronger once again if we lean on each other a little bit more.
Yeah.
A large portion of the book deals with my growing up on the farm, but a lot of that growing up involved food. It didn't involve corn and soybeans exclusively. It involved growing potatoes or butchering hogs or milking cows. Food, going to the neighbor and getting eggs. Today's farms, you don't see that so often. But I am convinced that all of that will return because it's like any good idea or anything that really did work. It'll come back. When I was a kid, we'd cross the Jefferson Barracks Bridge when it was the old Jefferson Barracks Bridge. But before you got to that bridge in Illinois, there were hundreds of acres of vegetables. There were cabbages and tomato plants and potatoes, and all of that was food that was grown for the city of St. Louis. And now you drive over there and it's car dealerships. But if you look closely, you'll see some of those old, we called them truck gardens at that time. That'll come back.
Right. Well, first of all, Alan Gebert is here along with his daughter, Mary Grace Foxwell. Their book is called The Land of Milk and Uncle Honey. Tonight, 7 o'clock for book signing and a book reading, Left Bank Books. You've touched on a lot of different things. And I think what you've touched on is the small town family is hurting for all sorts of reasons. And even though your family used farm and milk and eggs and hogs, right? An inner city family used stickball and, laundry and whatever else, right? So it's what you use to connect to your family. And I think what you're touching on is that connection with the family is frayed.
Well, it's food, and that has frayed. Our connection with food as Americans has really been distanced in the last 2 generations. When I was a kid across the river, no one was more than 1 generation removed from any farm. Most people's grandparents or parents, even if they worked in St. Louis, like my grandfather was a stockbroker in St. Louis, drove from Red Bud, Illinois every day into here in St. Louis. But his father was a farmer. But now we're 2 and 3 generations removed from that connection. So now what we think of as food isn't what really it was back then. We think of food perhaps as Schnucks and Dierbergs.
Right.
Food is different, and I like to remind people that really great food today, let's say a lamb chop with a glass of really fabulous red wine, was a great meal 2,000 years ago in Rome. I mean, really good food isn't new. How we deliver it, how we grow it, how it's now processed, that's all new.
Yeah. Mary, I could see you falling in love with these articles about his youth much more than the current ag business stories he was writing about.
Well, that's absolutely correct. And actually, I think Dad would agree that most of his readers probably feel the same way. And I think there's something to that. There's something that, like Dad was just saying, that food is a connector and a common connector among generations. And whether it be rural or urban, or whether it be young or old, or whether it be a farmer or an eater, food connects us all. And so I think in rereading these stories, I got to meet scores of people I had never met in my real life because they had all passed away long before I was born. So hearing their stories and their lessons and learning from their lives, I think other people will enjoy too.
Yeah, it's what happened to the family farm? What happened to your family's farm?
My family farm was sold. My father sold it to retire and move into town.
And some big giant ag business bought it?
No, a bigger farmer bought it, but and now he farms, as I write in the book, he farms in less time, better than we ever did. He could farm that whole farm in less than 10 days a year. It took 365 days and 4 men to farm back then.
Because of all the technology advancements, the machinery.
Well, we listened to our professors and the agribusiness idea that, you replaced men and people on the farm with capital, and that meant you took all these smaller, wiry, tough men, women too, because my mother was a very important part of that farm.
Right.
She just did not get paid.
You're right.
And you replaced them with big steel, big iron, big horsepower, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that's, of course, the way it goes.
But that's also killed small town America.
It has had an enormous impact on small town America. When you think of the farm where I grew up, there were 3 families on that farm. And today, there's no family on that farm.
Right.
Where my brother farms behind there now, and that he farms 4 times as much ground as my father did. Now, you add that to my father's farm, that was 20 families, 3 generations ago. Now it's no families.
Right.
There's no people there. There's no families' homes there. There used to be 2 schools. They're long gone. And it's not a sad thing or a bad thing. It's just the way it evolves.
Right.
And my basic belief is that it'll come back sooner or later. Everything does. Every generation discovers something new and they think it's new.
Right.
It's not.
But the stores are gone. The small town that those 20 families supported, the one stop town, the bar and the restaurant and the diner and the barber, they're no longer there anymore either.
Well, I think the bar might still be there.
The bar is there.
Yeah, definitely.
But Gracie knows better than me about how that's all answered today. You can get on your computer and have that stuff delivered in 15 minutes, even in rural America.
Yeah. The book is called The Land of Milk and Uncle Honey, Memories from the Farm of My Youth. Alan Giebert and Mary Grace Foxwell tonight, Left Bank Books, for a book signing and a book reading. Did you write anything new, or were these all? Did you write something new as a conclusion to all of this?
We did, and the columns were heavily edited and reworked to form a book in themselves. But Dad wrote a new prologue, and I wrote the epilogues, really trying to conclude on what I explain as at a very young age, my father learned to enjoy work, I should say. And as a result, we decided to collaborate on this project together, which was more work than we probably expected.
The book is called The Land of Milk and Uncle Honey. Tonight, 7 o'clock, book signing, book reading. If you can't get there, to Left Bank Books tonight at 7. Online, Amazon.com.
You
and
bet.
at your local hometown family farm bookstore. The Land of Milk and Uncle Honey. Alan and Mary Grace, thanks for coming in.
Thank you, McGraw.
9:53, Big 550 KTRS.
This is McGraw Live on